AITA for cutting off my parents' mortgage payments after I found out they were secretly renting out rooms and pocketing the cash? I, 35M, need to get this out because I've been carrying it for 2 months and I'm either going to explode or make a decision I can't take back. My wife says I'm right. My sister says I'm heartless. My mother is crying. My father isn't speaking to me. And my 7-year-old asked me a question last week that I literally could not answer without lying to him. I need strangers to tell me whether I'm crazy. Here's the background. I'm a fire sprinkler technician. I work for a commercial fire protection company here in the Phoenix metro area. I make $69,000 a year. It's honest work. I crawl through ceilings, I run pipe, I test systems, I deal with inspectors. I'm good at what I do. My wife Melissa, 33F, is a billing specialist at a dermatology clinic and makes $42,000. Combined we pull in about $111,000 before taxes. That sounds fine on paper until you hear where the money goes. We rent a 3-bedroom apartment in a complex on Arizona Avenue in Chandler. $1,780 a month. It's fine. The carpet is that industrial gray beige that every apartment complex installs because it hides everything. The dishwasher sounds like a garbage truck backing up. Owen, my 7-year-old, shares a wall with our bedroom, which means we hear every cough, every bad dream, every time he rolls over and his water bottle falls off the nightstand. Nora, our 4-year-old, has a room the size of a large closet. We made it work. We painted it lavender. She loves it. We don't have a yard. We have a shared courtyard with bark mulch and a rusted swing set that the HOA keeps saying they'll replace. Owen has started asking about yards. He has friends at school who have yards. He asks about it the way kids ask about things. Not angry, not demanding, just genuinely confused why his situation is different. Dad, why don't we have a backyard? I said, some families have houses and some have apartments, bud. He accepted it the way 7-year-olds do, which is to say he filed it away and will bring it up again in 3 days with a follow-up question I'm even less prepared to answer. Here's why we don't have a house. My parents, Don, 64M, and Carol, 61F, own a 3-bedroom ranch house on West Knox Road in Tempe. It's worth about $480,000 in today's market. Nice neighborhood. Mature trees. Citrus in the backyard. Block wall. 2-car garage. The kind of house that a young couple with 2 small kids would look at on Zillow and think, maybe someday. In 2018, my dad lost his job. He was a warehouse manager at a logistics company. He'd been there for 19 years. They laid him off at 57. I won't get into the details, but it was a restructuring situation. He got a small severance. He looked for work. He genuinely did, at first. But when you're 57 and your entire resume is warehouse operations and the hiring managers are 34-year-olds who want someone who can grow with the company, you don't get callbacks. I watched it break him. I won't pretend it didn't. He went from a guy who wore steel-toed boots and managed 30 people on a dock to a guy who sat in the living room refreshing indeed in his sweatpants. It was hard to watch. Mom works part-time as a secretary at their church. She makes about $18,000 a year. She answers phones, prints bulletins, updates the prayer chain email list. She's been doing it for 12 years and she likes it because she gets to talk to people and the pastor gives her flexibility. That's fine. But $18,000 doesn't pay a mortgage. By late 2018, they were 3 months behind on payments. Chase Bank sent a foreclosure notice. It was literally taped to the front door. My mother called me sobbing. Not the kind of crying where someone is upset, the kind where someone is terrified. She said, "Jakey, we're going to lose the house. I don't know what we're going to do. Your father won't talk about it. He just sits there." I drove over. My dad was in the garage, pretending to organize his workbench. He had this look on his face that I'd never seen before. Shame. My dad is a proud guy. Blue-collar proud. The kind of guy who would rather cut his own hand off than ask for help. He couldn't look me in the eye. I stood there in the garage and I said, "Dad, how much is the mortgage?" He told me. $1,640 a month. I said, "I got it, Dad. Don't worry about it." He said, "Just until I get back on my feet." That was 7 years ago. I set up autopay from my checking account directly to Chase Bank. Every single month, on the 1st, $1,640 leaves my account and goes toward the mortgage on a house on West Knox Road in Tempe, Arizona. A house I do not live in. A house my name is not on. A house I have 0 ownership stake in. My name is not on the title. My name is not on the deed. I am, for all legal and financial purposes, A stranger making donations to my parents' mortgage. 7 years. 84 payments. $137,760. You know what $137,760 is? That's a down payment on a house. That's Owen's college fund. That's Nora's college fund. That's a savings account that doesn't make me sick to look at. That's the difference between renting forever and building equity. Every month that $1,640 disappears, and every month Melissa and I sit at the kitchen table after the kids go to bed and look at our budget spreadsheet and pretend like we're going to save enough for a down payment on a house when $19,680 a year goes to my parents. Melissa has never once told me to stop. She has also never once told me she's okay with it. What she does is go very quiet when we drive past new housing developments. She doesn't say anything. She just looks out the window. That silence is louder than anything she could say. My dad never got back on his feet. I need to be honest about that. He does odd handyman jobs he picks up through next door, hanging ceiling fans, fixing fences, small stuff. He brings in maybe $600 to $800 a month in cash. He also watches Fox News for about 6 hours a day. I know this because every time I visit, the TV is on, the volume is at 35, and my father has an opinion about something happening in Washington that he wants to share with me while I'm fixing whatever is broken in his house this time. The garbage disposal. The sprinkler timer. The gate latch. I fix his house for free, too. I am, apparently, a full-service son. Mom still works her $18,000 church job. Between the two of them, they bring in maybe $30,000 a year. The mortgage is paid by me. The property taxes come out of their account, around $3,200 a year. Insurance is about $1,400. Utilities, food, their cars, they cover that. But the big number, the $1,640 that determines whether they have a roof, comes from me. Every month. Without fail. And I never complained. Not once. Because that's what you do. That's what family does. That's what I told myself. When Owen asked about the backyard, I told myself it was temporary. When Melissa went quiet at the new developments, I told myself we'd get there. When I ran the math and realized I'd paid more than $130,000 toward a house I don't own, I told myself it was the right thing to do. Until 2 months ago. Update 1. The discovery. 2 months ago, on a Saturday morning, I drove to the Tempe house to fix my dad's garbage disposal. He'd texted me a picture of the sink with standing water and said, "Disposal is making a grinding noise. Can you take a look?" No, please. No, when you get a chance. Just the picture and the instruction. I drove over because that's what I do. When I pulled onto West Knox Road, the first thing I noticed was that my dad's truck wasn't in the driveway. What was in the driveway was a dark blue Honda Odyssey I'd never seen before and a big-wheel tricycle, the red and yellow kind, parked behind it. I sat in my truck for a second. I figured maybe one of my parents' church friends was visiting. I grabbed my tools and walked up to the front door and knocked. A woman I had never seen before opened the door. She was maybe mid-30s. She had a kid on her hip and another one standing behind her, peeking around her legs. She smiled at me like she'd been expecting me. "Oh, you must be Don's son. I'm Amanda. We rent the back bedrooms." She said it so casually. Like I obviously already knew. Like this was established information. Like she assumed my parents had told me that 2 of the 3 bedrooms in their house, the house I pay the mortgage on, were now occupied by a tenant and her 2 children. I stood there holding a pipe wrench and a bucket, and I felt something shift inside my chest. Not anger yet. Something colder than anger. Recognition. The recognition that I had been played. I smiled at Amanda. I said it was nice to meet her. I asked her how long she'd been there. She said about 5 months. I asked if she liked the neighborhood. She said the neighbors were great and Don had been so welcoming. I nodded. I fixed the garbage disposal in 12 minutes because it was just a bottle cap lodged in the impeller. Amanda offered me a glass of iced tea. I took it. I sat at the kitchen counter and made small talk with a stranger who lives in the house I finance. Then I asked, as casually as I could manage, "So what do you pay for rent, if you don't mind me asking? I'm always curious about the rental market around here." She said $1,200 a month. Cash. She said Don preferred cash and she paid him on the 1st of every month. $1,200 a month. For 5 months. $6,000 in cash that my parents had collected while I continued to make every single mortgage payment. Let me do the math for you, because I've done it about 400 times in my head since that Saturday. I pay $1,640 a month for the mortgage. My parents collect $1,200 a month from Amanda. That means the actual net cost of the mortgage to my parents is $440 a month. But they don't pay that $440. I do. Which means my parents are not only living mortgage-free, they are generating $1,200 a month in income from a house that someone else pays for. My parents are profiting off me. I found my dad in the garage 20 minutes later. He pulled up in his truck with a bag from Home Depot. I was sitting on his workbench stool. He saw my face and he knew. I could tell he knew because he set the bag down very slowly, the way you set things down when you're buying time. I met Amanda, I said. He nodded. She seems nice. Her kids seem nice. She says she pays you $1,200 a month in cash. He leaned against his truck and crossed his arms. We needed the extra income, he said. You think $800 a month in handyman money is enough? Amanda is a nice lady. Her kids are quiet. It's not a big deal. Dad, I said, I've given you $137,000 in mortgage payments. You didn't tell me you have a tenant paying $1,200 a month. You could have used that money to start paying the mortgage yourself. You could have called me and said, Jake, we've got it from here, you can stop. Instead you kept cashing my auto pay every month and pocketing Amanda's rent on top of it. How is that not a big deal? He looked at me and said something I will remember for the rest of my life. The house isn't yours, Jake. It's mine. I can do what I want with it. I put down the iced tea. I picked up my tools. I walked to my truck. I drove home. I didn't say another word. Update 2. The fallout. 3 weeks. That's how long I went without contacting my parents. No calls. No texts. No visits. No garbage disposals. No gate latches. No sprinkler timers. Melissa was relieved, though she'd never say it directly. What she said was, "You seem less tense." What she meant was, "I've been waiting 7 years for you to wake up." During those 3 weeks, I did something I should have done in 2018. I sat down with our finances. I mean really sat down. I opened every account. I pulled every statement. I calculated exactly what the last 7 years had cost us. $137,760 in mortgage payments to Chase Bank. That number is real. It's not an estimate. I can show you the bank statements. 84 payments of $1,640, withdrawn on the 1st of every month, starting January 2019. If I had put that same $1,640 per month into an index fund averaging 8% annual return, it would be worth approximately $188,000 today. If I had put it toward our own housing, even just saving for a down payment, we would own a home right now. We would be building equity. Owen would have a backyard. Instead, I financed my parents' lifestyle while they collected rent on the side and told me it wasn't my business. My mom called after the first week. She was crying, which is her default mode of communication when something isn't going her way. I love my mother. I need to say that. She's not a bad person. But she has perfected the art of the guilt cry over 6 decades, and it is a precision instrument. She said, "Your father didn't mean it that way. He's proud. You know how he is. Please don't stop the payments. We'll lose the house." I said, "Mom, whose house is it? Because Dad says it's his. And last time I checked, I'm the one paying for it." She didn't have an answer for that. I called my sister Brenda, 39F, because I thought, naively, that she would understand. Brenda lives in Scottsdale. She's married to Craig, who is a dentist. They live in a $750,000 house with a pool and a 3-car garage and a kitchen island the size of my dining room. Brenda's contribution to our parents' financial survival over the past 7 years has been exactly $0. She hosts Thanksgiving. She bought them a Keurig for Christmas. She sends Mom flowers on Mother's Day. Those are her contributions. When I told Brenda about Amanda, about the $1,200 a month, about Dad's comment, she said, and I'm quoting directly here, "Jake, you need to calm down. Mom and Dad are old. They're scared. They're just trying to survive." I said, "Brenda, they're surviving on my paycheck. You survive on Craig's. I'm the only one in this family who isn't being subsidized by somebody else." She hung up on me. Update 3. The decision. I spent the next 2 weeks doing research. Not emotional research. Not venting to friends or stewing in resentment. Actual, practical research. I talked to a financial advisor, a free consultation through my company's EAP program. I talked to a real estate attorney for 30 minutes. I read everything I could find about mortgage obligations, property rights, and family financial agreements. Here is what I learned. I have no legal claim to my parents' house. None. My name is not on the title, the deed, or the mortgage. The fact that I've made $137,760 in payments means nothing legally. I am, in the eyes of the law, a person who made voluntary gifts to his parents' mortgage company. I could theoretically sue for unjust enrichment, but the attorney told me it would cost more in legal fees than I'd likely recover, and the family relationship would be destroyed. He paused and then said, although it sounds like that might already be happening. Fair point. What I do have is the right to stop paying. It's my money. The autopay comes from my checking account. I can cancel it with one phone call to Chase Bank. So that's what I'm considering. And before you tell me I'm a monster, let me explain my reasoning. My parents have income. Combined, they bring in roughly $30,000 a year from Dad's handyman work and Mom's church job. They also bring in $14,400 a year from Amanda's rent. That's $44,400. The mortgage is $19,680 a year. Property taxes and insurance add another $4,600. That's $24,280 in annual housing costs. They can afford it. They won't be comfortable. They'll have to budget carefully. Dad might need to take on more handyman jobs instead of watching cable news all afternoon. But they can afford it. I ran those numbers 8 times. I showed them to Melissa. She looked at them and said, so they've been able to afford this for 5 months and they just didn't tell you? I said, correct. She said, cancel the autopay, Jake. She said it calmly. The way she says things when she's been thinking about them for a very long time. But here's where it gets complicated. Because this isn't just about money. This is about my dad saying, the house isn't yours, to the person who's been paying for it. This is about my mom trying to manipulate me into continuing to pay. This is about my sister living in a $750,000 house and telling me to calm down when I object to being used. This is about Owen asking me why Grandpa has a house but we don't. That question. That one question from my 7-year-old. It sits in my stomach like a stone. I talked to Melissa about it one night after the kids went to bed. We were at the kitchen table with a laptop open to our budget spreadsheet. She said, do you know what $1,640 a month means for us? I said I knew. She said, no. I don't think you do. It means Nora's preschool is on a credit card. It means Owen can't do travel baseball because the registration is $400 and we can't swing it. It means I drive a 2016 Civic with 140,000 miles on it because we can't afford a car payment. It means every time your mother calls and you go over there to fix something, I sit here and I think about the fact that we are subsidizing a lifestyle that is more comfortable than ours. She wasn't angry. That's the thing about Melissa. She doesn't get angry. She gets clear. Anger I could argue with. Clarity I cannot. Update 4. The conversation. I drove to the Tempe house on a Sunday afternoon. I called ahead this time. I told my mom I was coming to talk. She said, oh good, does this mean things are back to normal? I said, I'm coming to talk, Mom. When I got there, Dad was in his recliner. The TV was on but muted, which I took as a sign that he was taking this seriously. Mom was on the couch with a glass of iced tea and the expression she wears when she's bracing for something. I sat in the chair across from them. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I had practiced this in the truck. Here's where I am, I said. I've paid $137,760 on your mortgage over 7 years. I don't have a legal claim to this house, and I understand that. I did it because you needed help and I'm your son. But I found out that for the last 5 months, you've been collecting $1,200 a month in rent and you didn't tell me. That's $6,000 you received while I continued to make every payment. Dad, you told me the house is yours and you can do what you want with it. You're right. But the money is mine, and I can do what I want with it. Mom started crying. Dad sat very still. I'm giving you 90 days, I said. 3 months. After that, the autopay stops. That gives you time to figure out your finances. Between your income and Amanda's rent, you can cover the mortgage. You'll have to budget. You might have to cut some things. But you can do it. Dad said, you'd really let us lose the house? I said, Dad, I've been losing a house for 7 years. My house. The one I can't buy because I'm paying for yours. My kids don't have a yard because your tenant's kids play in yours. He didn't respond to that. Mom said, what if we gave you back some of the rent money? What if Amanda's rent went to you? I said, Mom, $1,200 doesn't fix this. I've paid $137,000. I don't want Amanda's rent. I want my $1,640 back. Every month. Starting in 90 days. Brenda called me that night. Craig must have been out because she was speaking freely. She said, "You're going to put Mom and Dad on the street." I said, "Brenda, they make $44,000 a year with Amanda's rent. The mortgage is $1,640. They can afford it. What they can't afford is the version of their life where I pay their biggest bill and they pretend it's not happening." She said, "This is about your pride." I said, "Brenda, this is about the $137,000 I've spent that you haven't. If you're so worried about Mom and Dad, you and Craig can write a check. You live in a house with a pool. I live in an apartment. You don't get to lecture me about what I owe." She said I was being cruel. I said I was being honest. She said there's no difference. Maybe she's right. Update 5. Where things stand now. It's been 2 months since the discovery and 3 weeks since the conversation at their house. Here's where things stand. I have not cancelled the autopay yet. The 90-day clock is ticking. I told my parents the payments stop in early July. That gives them the rest of April, all of May, and all of June to prepare. 3 months of runway. My dad hasn't called me once. Not once. My mother has called 4 times. The first call was crying. The second was bargaining. She offered to have Amanda pay me directly and reduce the rent she'd keep to just $200 a month for household expenses. I said no. The third call was guilt. She said, "I never thought my own son would do this to us." I said, "Mom, I never thought my own parents would profit off me in secret." The fourth call was the worst. She was calm. She said, "Your father is having chest pains. I think the stress is making him sick." I called my dad directly. He picked up and sounded fine. He said, "Your mother is being dramatic. My chest is fine." Then he said, "But she's right about one thing, you're making a mistake." I said, "I've been making a mistake for 7 years, Dad. I'm correcting it." Brenda has organized a family position. She called our Uncle Ray, our Aunt Deborah, and 2 of my cousins. She told them her version, which is that I'm abandoning my elderly parents. Uncle Ray called me. He was surprisingly reasonable. He said, "Jake, I get it. But they're your parents." I said, "Ray, did Brenda tell you about the tenant? The $1,200 a month? The $6,000 in cash they collected while I was paying their mortgage?" There was a pause. He said, "She left that pot out." I said, "Yeah, she did. I've started saving the $1,640. Not officially, the autopay is still running. But Melissa and I opened a separate savings account and we're putting aside $1,640 a month from other cuts we've made. We want to see what it feels like to have that money. In 2 months, we've saved $3,280. It's not a lot. But it's the first time in 7 years that money has gone toward our future instead of my parents' past. Owen asked me again last week. We were in the parking lot of his school, walking to the car. He said, "Dad, why does Grandpa have a house but we don't?" I stopped. I knelt down so I was at his eye level. And I said, "That's a great question, buddy. And I'm working on it." I didn't have a better answer. But for the first time in 7 years, it wasn't a lie. Melissa looked at houses on Zillow last night. Not the way she usually does, where she scrolls quietly and then closes the app with a sigh. She was showing me listings. She said, "If we had $1,640 a month freed up, we could qualify for a $350,000 house. There are houses in Gilbert with yards. 3 bedrooms. Good schools." She showed me one with a lemon tree in the backyard. Owen would lose his mind. So here's my question for the internet. AITA for telling my parents I'm cutting off their mortgage payments after 7 years, even though they might struggle financially, after I found out they were secretly renting out rooms and keeping the cash while I paid their mortgage and my own family went without? My mom says I'm heartless. My dad says I'm making a mistake. My sister says I'm abandoning them. My wife says I'm finally being fair to my own family. I think I already know the answer. But I need to hear it from people who don't share my last name. Edit. A lot of people are asking why I didn't get my name on the deed. You're right. I should have. In 2018, I was 28, my parents were in crisis, and I was trying to help, not negotiate a real estate transaction. I didn't think about protecting myself because I didn't think I needed to be protected from my own parents. That was naive. I know that now. Edit 2. For the people doing the math, yes, $137,760 is more than a 20% down payment on a $480,000 house. I'm aware. You don't need to keep telling me. I do that math in the shower every morning. Edit 3. Someone asked if the tenant arrangement is even legal, whether Don has a landlord permit, whether Amanda is on a lease, whether the rental income is being reported. I don't know the answers to any of those questions, and honestly, I'm not interested in using that as leverage. I'm not trying to get my parents in trouble with the city or the IRS. I just want my $1,640 back. Edit 4. Thank you to everyone suggesting I talk to a real estate attorney about a possible lien or promissory note for the $137,760. I have a consultation scheduled for next week. Melissa and I talked about it, and we're not looking to sue my parents. But we want to understand our options. If there's a way to formalize what I've paid and protect our interests going forward, we want to know about it. TLDR, I, 35M, have been paying my parents' mortgage, $1,640 per month, for 7 years, totaling $137,760, after my dad lost his job. I found out they secretly rented out 2 bedrooms for $1,200 per month cash and kept the income without telling me. When I confronted my dad, he said, "The house is mine, I can do what I want." Now I've told them I'm stopping payments in 90 days, and my family thinks I'm the villain. My wife thinks I'm finally doing the right thing. AITA.